In this video, you'll have a desperate warning about the current information crisis. There's a YouTube video of President Obama sitting on a mahogany seat in the Oval Office. He's looking directly into the camera. His decree is serious. How we push ahead in the age of information will be the distinction between whether we endure or turn out to be some messed up oppressed world. Then again, actually Obama never really said that. So what's happening? All things considered. This video is an incredibly complex deepfake. Its makers utilized man-made reasoning to control reality to create an altogether acceptable and totally stunning new world. Tragically, the admonition that counterfeit Obama is conveying might be short of what was needed. We are as of now living in what the author calls the Infocalypse, a biological system of hazardous and conniving data. Deepfakes will just intensify the issue. It is fundamental that we ensure ourselves against the risks that deepfakes and the Infocalypse present before it's past the point of no return. In these chapters, you'll learn how deepfakes began on Reddit, how deepfake pornography was utilized to silence a columnist, and how a little Baltic nation retaliated against digital fighting. Photographs, videos, and sound control have become simple thanks to AI. In the 19th century, people designed photography unexpectedly. We could catch a valid, apparently indisputable cut of the real world, yet very soon it turned out to be certain that reality could be caught as well as controlled. From the start, changing photographs was a meticulous cycle. After some time, however, it got less complex. Presently, anybody can do it. Simply download a free application. Accordingly, we've gotten used to the possibility that photographs can be adjusted and know to pay special attention to any correcting or altering. However, aren't sound and video unique? Unquestionably, they can't be convincingly faked. Isn't that so? Indeed, new advancements in man-made consciousness affirm a remarkable inverse. The main message here is photo, video, and sound control have become simple thanks to AI. Computer-based intelligence, or computerized reasoning, is programming that measures data through profound learning. It empowers AI to settle on choices independently, in light of what it's learned subsequent to crunching a lot of information. The expression deepfake is derived from this profound learning. In addition to, for evident reasons, counterfeit. The first deepfakes demonstrated how AI can trade an individual's face into a current video. They were posted on the site Reddit by a mysterious client. After a short time, they were pulling in some stressful consideration. In late 2017, a columnist named Samantha Cole distributed an article called Man-Made Intelligence-Assisted Fake Porn is Here, and We're All Fucked. Her story cautioned of a Reddit gathering brimming with deepfake pornography. Its organizer utilized AI to trade the essences of Hollywood famous people onto the collections of pornography stars. Deepfake pornography is non-consensual, profoundly humiliating and belittling. Furthermore, it doesn't make a difference how rich you are. There's nothing you can do to clear it off the web. Indeed, even Scarlett Johansson, the most generously compensated entertainer in Hollywood, couldn't shield her own name from it. The fake pornography discussion on Reddit was in the long run brought down. In any case, its maker shared the code that he'd used to make the deepfakes. Presently, there's an entire setup of free instruments and programming out there, open to any individual who needs to create their own deepfakes. Sounds frightening, isn't that right? However, this is all a glimpse of something larger. Deepfake innovation is proceeding to improve. Before long, it might turn out to be in a real sense difficult to tell when a picture, video, or soundbite is fake. This innovation is as of now driving us down a dim way of mis and disinformation. Russia is an expert in information warfare. Individuals will in general utilize the expressions falsehood and disinformation reciprocally. Yet, there is a significant distinction. Falsehood is something that is just off base, though disinformation is intentionally planned to delude individuals. Different nations take part in disinformation crusades. Be that as it may, the undisputed expert of this kind of fighting in Russia. Quite possibly the most harmful Soviet disinformation crusades happened during the 1980s. At the tallness of the AIDS pestilence, it was known as activity infection, and it began with an article distributed in a dark, Soviet-supported Indian paper called The Patriot. The article blamed the US military for delivering the AIDS infection as a bioweapon. The Americans, The Patriot claimed, needed to slaughter black and gay men. The main message here is Russia is an expert in data fighting. There was a minuscule trace of validity in the Russians' disinformation. The US did earlier have an organic weapons program, yet it was at that point in decay during the 1960s. And by the 1970s, the Pentagon was centered more around safeguarding against bioweapons than on making them. That fact didn't prevent the AIDS guarantee from turning into a web sensation, subsequent to getting especially inescapable in Asia and Africa. It tore through papers everywhere in the world, conveyed across 80 unique nations by the press. The story discolored America's worldwide standing. Yet it likewise partitioned the country from the inside. The Soviets endeavored to abuse racial pressures, so they explicitly focused on the African American people group, given U.S. history. Numerous individuals thought that it was not difficult to accept that their administration truly needed to kill them. The following significant Kremlin disinformation crusade came in 2016. Its motivation was to partition the country and turn citizens against Hillary Clinton. Its code name, Task Lacta. The activity included Russians acting like Americans via online media. These fake U.S. residents made networks dependent on political characters. The people group was deliberately overseen. They filled a need to spellbind Americans and make them defenseless against Russia's assaulting technique. All signs say this methodology worked. Russian obstruction in American governmental issues is currently a hardliner issue, with one side excessively jumpy about the danger and the other rejecting that it even exists. At last, deepfakes could make the Russian strategies much more strong, troublesome, and risky. It required the Soviet Union years to advance activity infection in papers. However, in advanced age, deepfakes can spread exceptionally convincing disinformation right away by any means. The Infocalypse is compromising Western vote-based systems, most remarkably that of the US. The majority-rule governments around the globe are encountering an emergency of trust. A 2018 worldwide study uncovered stunning figures. 64% of individuals who lived in majority-rule systems felt their administration infrequently or never acted in light of a legitimate concern for the general population. In any case, there's another amazement from a similar report. In non-vote-based nations, that number was a lot lower, just 41%. This emergency of trust has a nonentity: U.S. President Donald Trump. The main message here is, the Infocalypse is undermining Western majority-rule governments, most remarkably that of the U.S. Trump lies constantly. That is a gold truth, not a hardliner proclamation, as indicated by an information base set up by the Washington Post. Trump made more than 18,000 bogus and deluding claims in only 3 years, from January 2017 to January 2020. That is a normal of 15 lies every day. Yet, Trump doesn't just pollute the public talk with lies. He goes above and beyond. The president weakens the entire thought of truth. He's an expert on the supposed liar's prophet. This is a strategy where someone excuses anything they don't care for as fake, regardless of whether it's actual. Simply consider how Trump forgets about all analysis as fake news. Yet, what does Trump have to do with deepfakes? Indeed, as this innovation develops more conspicuously, the liar's prophet will open up to everybody. Individuals are coursing a video that makes you look awful. Indeed, it should be fake. On the off chance that you question that Trump, the American president, will utilize deepfakes to propel his plan, reconsider. He's as of now joyously misused modest fakes, which are miscontextualized or roughly altered pictures, brief snippets, or recordings. The Infocalypse has lethal results in nations with less hardy majority rules systems. The Infocalypse is an issue for the entire world, not simply the West. On the off chance that mis and disinformation is unsafe for majority rule governments, consider how they could deal with nations where the right to speak freely of discourse is restricted and the standard of law is non-existent. In 2019, the Basic Freedoms Association Witness asked columnists and activists from Brazil, South Africa, and Malaysia how they felt about the danger of deepfakes. Their answers were strikingly comparative. All concurred that their own legislatures were definitely riskier than unfamiliar states. The main message here is, the Infocalypse has lethal results in nations with less hardy majority rules systems. In India, deepfakes have just been utilized as a device against political resistance. Take the instance of Rana Ayub, an insightful columnist and pundit of India's decision party, BJP. In 2018, a progression of fake tweets was posted on the web. They all seemed to come from Rana and made statements like, "I disdain India," "I scorn Indians," and "I love Pakistan," India's long-lasting political foe. Rana immediately guaranteed her adherents that the tweets were fake. However, things were going to deteriorate. The day after those fakes showed up on Twitter, a fake pornography video highlighting Rana started coursing on the web as well. Incredibly, it was even shared by the Decision Gatherings web-based media fan page. Rana's telephone exploded with shocking, disparaging private messages. Yet, assailants didn't stop there. Rana was doxxed. Her own telephone number was distributed on the web. What's more, individuals who shared it outlined their messages with the deepfake pornography. Rana got many passing and assault dangers. It's as yet muddled who delivered that deepfake video of Rana. However, it worked. Rana quit writing. She had been quieted. In Myanmar, misandrism has really murdered individuals. In 2014, an ultranationalistic Buddhist priest spread an untruth that the Muslim proprietor of a bistro in a town called Mandalay had assaulted a Buddhist worker. Accordingly, infuriated hordes raged Mandalay, destroying vehicles and scouring shops. Radicals utilized Facebook to intensify their message of detest and advance dangers against the country's Muslim populace. In the end, the enmity arrived at a limit. In 2015, Myanmar's Rakhine state started an enormous scope mission of ethnic purging against the Muslim Rohingya individuals. When Facebook, at last, started to boycott online fanatics, 25,000 Rohingya had been killed and a further 700,000 had fled the country. Later on, more tricksters will utilize deepfakes to cheat organizations and people. In 2016, a gathering of extortionists effectively took 50 million euros from different business magnates and pioneers across the world. The crooks utilized fake personas. One of them acted like French Defense Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian. The innovation was shockingly straightforward. A silicone cover bearing Le Drian's resemblance. One cheat put on the cover and sat behind a work area. A French banner hung out of sight. At that point, he and his associates made a progression of video calls to affluent people, requesting that they reserve mystery French government missions. The extortionist looked completely ludicrous. The veil was unnaturally pale, and his eyes looked like dark openings. All things considered, the plot succeeded. A huge number of euros wound up in the con artist's ledgers. Presently envision the amount more the hoodlums might have on the off chance that they'd utilize deepfakes, all things being equal. The main message here is, later on, tricksters will utilize deepfakes to cheat organizations and people. Today, sound extortion is quite possibly the most widely recognized strategy used to take individual data. Deepfakes will just compound the situation. In March 2019, the Wall Street Journal detailed that con artists cheated a British energy organization of 250,000 euros. Their strategy: deepfake sound emulated the voice of the association's CEO. The CEO had made many discourses, which were all accessible on the web. The tricksters should have simply gathered that substance and used it to prepare the AI. Deepfakes aren't only hazardous to organizations. People are in danger as well. We've just perceived how deepfake pornography, for example, can be utilized to pester, belittle, and undermine ladies in certain nations. A similar innovation might actually cause significantly more damage. Simply consider what might occur in the event that someone utilized deepfakes to make gay pornography and spread it in where homosexuality stays illicit. At last, deepfakes additionally empower conniving scholars. Recollect Pizzagate. That unusual scheme asserted that the first-class secrecy of pedophiles worked out of the storm cellar of a pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. The invented gathering of pedophiles supposedly included Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. The hypothesis sprung completely from spilled messages between individuals from the National Committee of the American Democratic Party. A portion of those messages referenced pizza. We can only imagine what would have happened if a deepfake video of, say, Hillary Clinton and one of her colleagues discussing a systematic program of child abuse had been released. State entertainers have been spreading disinformation about the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has sent shockwaves across the world. It has taken endless lives, crashed economies, and significantly changed our everyday schedules. Be that as it may, the illness hasn't quite recently influenced individuals. It has likewise hit our data environment. One nation that has been misusing the pandemic to spread disinformation is, you got it, Russia. Similar as it did with AIDS and activity infection, Russia has likewise advanced connivance about the novel COVID. The case is that COVID-19 was made by the US government as a bioweapon against China. What's more, to tangle things up considerably further, Russia has additionally been saying that the infection is really a Chinese bioweapon. Truly, these accounts are the specific contrary energies of one another. In any case, Moscow is utilizing them deliberately to abuse the mounting political pressures between the US and China. The main message here is, state entertainers have been spreading disinformation about the COVID-19 pandemic. Lamentably, Russia isn't at all the solitary country abusing the COVID-19 pandemic. China, as well, has been embracing Russian-style disinformation strategies. Toward the start of the pandemic, China edited any conversation about the illness. Specialists, informants, and even common residents were quieted. The Chinese Communist Party additionally edited flare-up-related catchphrases via web-based media. When the pandemic arrived in different nations, China zeroed in on harm control. Beijing's motivation was to improve its picture abroad. Victorious, however, uncontrollably overstated reports depicted how well the nation was taking care of the emergency. The public authority additionally attempted to reject that the infection had started in China, then in America. Trump was spreading disinformation about the pandemic in his own specific manner. In February 2020, around the start of the pandemic, Trump minimized the danger of the infection. He blamed Democrats for politicizing the infection. This was, he said, his adversary's new deception and endeavor to spread his name. Yet, by mid-March, the quantity of COVID cases in the U.S. had arrived at 10,000 and the economy was dunking into a downturn. On March 17th, Trump made a U-turn. He repudiated all that he'd been saying previously and gloated, "I felt that this was a pandemic well before it was known as a pandemic, all through the emergency." Trump has spread deception at his press briefings. Once, he proposed that a disinfectant could be regulated by an infusion inside. In a pandemic, precise data is fundamental. Mis and disinformation can in a real sense cost lives. In any case, what is reality? When there are so many clashing accounts out there, it tends to be difficult to tell. Fighting the Infocalypse will include both a responsive and proactive methodology. Plainly, the Infocalypse presents an approaching risk to social orders all around the globe. Be that as it may, how can every one of us deal with it? All things considered, we can begin by perceiving exactly how real the issue is. You've just ventured out perusing these chapters. Yet, to battle the dangers presented by deepfakes and the Infocalypse, we need to go further, a lot further. We need to locate a typical language and concur on the wording. The uplifting news is, society all in all is getting more acquainted with the expressions disinformation, falsehood, and deepfakes. The main message here is, fighting the Infocalypse will include both a responsive and a proactive methodology. When deepfakes become ordinary, it will be a higher priority than any time in recent memory to help believable reporting. Also, actuality-checking administrations will get vital. In the United States, these incorporate PolitiFact, Snopes, and AP Fact Check. In Europe, there's Full Actuality, the BBC's Reality Check, and the Agence France Presse Fact Check. There are likewise straightforward, PC-based instruments that can shield you from mis and disinformation. NewsGuard, for example, is a program module that reveals to you whether a site is reliable. So you would already be able to do a considerable amount to guarantee that the data you devour is valid. In any case, essentially guarding yourself against the Infocalypse isn't sufficient. We should likewise proactively battle it. Luckily, a few nations have just won fights against cyberattacks and data fighting. Take Estonia, a little previous Soviet state in the Baltics. In 2007, Russia directed a progression of horrendous cyberattacks on Estonia's administration, media, and banking framework. As opposed to overlap even with this assault, Estonia adopted a proactive strategy. It previously dispatched an early admonition framework, which made residents aware of Russian disinformation assaults. Then it gathered a gathering of volunteers, specialists in it, and correspondences. They assisted individuals with planning cyberattacks and reacted to them. Lastly, the nation assembled hardy, multi-layered cyber defense frameworks. As Estonia's model shows, social orders do have a decision. It's dependent upon us to choose whether or not we need to experience a daily reality such that the real and the fake are pitifully interwoven. On the off chance that we don't, at that point, we should cooperate to fight off the danger of deepfakes and the Infocalypse. Battling the Infocalypse will include both a responsive and proactive methodology. Unmistakably, the Infocalypse presents a fast-approaching risk to social orders all around the planet. In any case, how can every one of us deal with it? All things considered, we can begin by perceiving exactly how real the issue is. You've just ventured out perusing these chapters. Be that as it may, to battle the dangers presented by deepfakes and the Infocalypse, we need to go further, a lot further. We need to discover the normal language and concede to phrasing. The uplifting news is, society overall is getting more acquainted with the expressions disinformation, deception, and deepfakes. The main message here is, battling the Infocalypse will include both a responsive and proactive methodology. When deepfakes become typical, it will be a higher priority than at any other time to help sound news coverage. Also, reality-checking administrations will be essential. In the United States, these incorporate PolitiFact, Snopes, and AP Fact Check. In Europe, there's Full Fact, the BBC's Reality Check, and the Agence France Presse Fact Check. There are additionally basic PC-based devices that can shield you from mis- and disinformation. NewsGuard, for example, is a program module that reveals to you whether a site is dependable, so you would already be able to do a considerable amount to guarantee that the data you devour is valid. However, just protecting yourself against the Infocalypse isn't sufficient. We should likewise proactively battle it. Luckily, a few nations have just won fights against cyberattacks and data fighting. Take Estonia, a little previous Soviet state in the Baltics. In 2007, Russia led a progression of awful cyberattacks on Estonia's administration, media, and banking foundation. As opposed to overlay even with this assault, Estonia adopted a proactive strategy. It previously dispatched an early admonition framework, which made residents aware of Russian disinformation assaults. Then it gathered a gathering of volunteers, specialists in it and interchanges. They assisted individuals with planning cyberattacks and react to them. Lastly, the nation assembled strong, multi-layered cyber defense frameworks. As Estonia's model shows, social orders do have a decision. It's dependent upon us to choose whether or not we need to experience a daily reality such that the real and the fake are miserably entwined. On the off chance that we don't, at that point, we should cooperate to fight off the danger of deepfakes and the Infocalypse. You like what you hear? Check out other personal development or business books. This video was made possible by your support. It takes a very long time to make one of our videos, so thanks to your contributions on Patreon and watching our videos, we are slowly able to do more and more of them. If you want to help us out, check out the Patreon page. If you like the contents of this video, check out other books in the description and suggest what book we should cover next.